Hello everyone, this is Rita, Assistant Professor of Physics, Government College for Girls, Bhodiakheda, Fatehabad. In this video, I will explain you about the fringe width of the dark and bright fringes that we have obtained during the interference. And after that, we will Stokes law, which will help us in finding the various path difference conditions in the interference processes. So next slide will show you about the fringe width and how we can derive the expression for the fringe width. So let's move on to the next slide. In this picture you can see that I have shown you the alternate dark and bright fringes. This will be the pattern which you will get during any interference experiment. So you can see here the dark regions are showing the dark fringes and the white regions are showing the bright fringes. We get the alternate dark and the bright fringes. Now in order to find out the fringe width from this pattern, what we have to do? We can take any two consecutive dark fringes or bright fringes. As you can see on the screen, in the first case I have taken the midpoint of the first dark fringe and the second dark fringe. So that difference between the two center points will give you the fringe width. Or you can find out in similar way with the help of a bright fringe also. So in this way we can find out the fringe width in the experiments. So moving on to the next slide, how to derive the relationship or the formula for the fringe width and on what factors does beta or the fringe width depends. For that we have to derive a formula for fringe width. So in order to do that, what we will do, we will draw a picture. As you can see here, we have taken a source S and with the help of that source we have obtained the two coherent sources S1 and S2 by taking the two narrow slits. Then we have used a screen at a distance capital D from the sources S1 and S2. Since you know that the wavelets which are coming out of the source S1 and S2, they will interfere constructively or destructively and we will obtain certain fringes on the screen. At the point O, we will definitely get a maxima because the path difference between the rays coming from S1 and S2 to O will be 0. So we will get a maxima at O. So that is why we will find out the any other fringe. Like you can see here, I have shown this distance by y as from O to P. I have taken any arbitrary point P on the screen and now I want to know that at the point P I will get a maxima or a minima. Well, it will be decided by the path difference between S1P and S2P. That will tell us that I will get a maxima or I will get a minima at the point P. Well, in order to do that, what we will do, we will simply take the triangle S1PQ and then by substituting the values by using the Pythagoras theorem, we will get certain relations. Similarly, by taking the triangle S2PR, again we will get the certain relations as you can see on the screen. Then in order to find the intensity at the point P, as I have already told you that I will get a maxima or a minima at P, that will totally depend upon the path difference between S1P and S2P. If the path difference is equal to integral multiple of wavelength, we will get a maxima, and if the path difference is equal to odd integral multiple of wavelength, then we will get a minima. So for a point P to correspond to a maxima, we should have S2P minus S1P should be equals to n lambda, and n will be equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Obviously n is equals to 0 corresponds to the central maxima as I have already told you. Now from the previous figure you can obtain this relation S2P square minus S1P square and you can solve it easily. On solving this relationship you will get S2P square minus S1P square is equals to 2xd, and further solving it you will get S2P minus S1P. Now since we know that your small d, that is the distance between S1 and S2 is very small as compared to capital D. Capital D is the distance between the sources and the screen. So we can roughly take S1P nearly equal to S2P, and they both are equal to capital D. By substituting this value in the above relation, we will get S2P minus S1P is equals to XD upon capital D. So S2P minus S1P was representing the path difference between the two waves. So I can say that path difference is equals to X small d upon capital D. So this is the relationship for the path difference which I am getting at the point P. Now this path difference will decide that either I get a maxima or I get a minima at the point P. In order to get a maxima or a bright fringe at point P, this path difference X small d upon capital D should be equals to n lambda, as I have already told you. So from this very relationship you can obtain the value of X, which I have shown you in the figure by Y. So you can just simply take it X or Y, whatever you want to take. So X is equals to n lambda capital D upon small d, where n is equal to 0 plus minus 1 and so and so and so. So these will be the positions. You can put this X as Xn also. So Xn, by placing n is equal to 0, you will get the central maxima. By placing n is equal to 1, you will get X1. That will give you the position of the first maxima. And by placing the value n is equal to 2, you will get X2. That you will get the position of the second maxima on the screen, and so on. Like this, you can also find out that the various positions of the dark fringes also by placing the path difference equals to n plus 1 by 2 lambda. In that case also you can find out the positions of the minimas on the screen. Now in order to obtain the fringe width expression, what we have to do? As I have already told you that if I take the difference between any two consecutive dark or bright fringes, that will give you the fringe width. Just in the previous slide, I have obtained the values x0, x1, x2, x3, etc. So you simply what you do, you just subtract x2 minus x1. You obtain the value x2 minus x1, and that will give you the fringe width. This you can do with the bright fringe formula, and also you can do with the dark fringe formula. So here in this picture you can see that I have just placed the position x, the path difference xd upon d is equal to n plus 1 by 2 lambda. This is the condition for the destructive interference, or you can say for the dark fringe. From here I have obtained the value of x, which is equals to n plus 1 by 2 lambda capital D upon small d. By putting the value of n as equals to 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., you will get the position of the minima on the screen. You can get x1, x2, x3 and so on. Right. Now when you will obtain x2 minus x1, x3 minus x2, x4 minus x3 and so on, what you will observe? You observe that you will get the same value in each case, the same expression in each case, which mean that the dark fringes and the bright fringes, they are equally spaced. And here I have shown you the distance between consecutive bright and dark fringes, that is given by the beta is equals to xn plus 1 minus xn. If you place the values, you will get beta is equals to lambda capital D upon small d. That is, the fringe width is equals to lambda capital D upon small d. So you have obtained the formula for the fringe width. Here in this picture I have compared that if you take the formula for dark fringe or you take the formula for bright fringe, you get the same fringe width. You can compare them, right? In the first part you can see I have told you, you can find out the position of the bright fringes by putting the value n is equal to 0, n is equal to 1, n is equal to 2 and so on. Now in order to get the expression, what you will do? You will just subtract yn minus 1 and you will get beta is equals to d lambda upon small d. And in the other case, you can also do the same thing by placing the value of n as equal to 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on, and by subtracting yn minus 1 from yn, you will get beta for the bright fringes. You can see in both the cases the fringe width is coming out to be capital D lambda upon small d. You are getting the same expression. So you can say that the expressions for fringe width show that the fringes are equally spaced on the screen. Now what the conclusion that we draw from the expression of the fringe width? We know the formula for the fringe width is beta is equals to lambda capital D upon small d. You know all the factors: beta, fringe width, d, distance of screen, small d is the distance between the slits, and lambda is the wavelength of light used. So what you observe that your fringe width is directly proportional to the wavelength of light used. If you increase the wavelength, your fringe width will also increase. Second is your fringe width is directly proportional to capital D, means it is depending upon the distance of the screen also. And third one is the fringe width is inversely proportional to small d. Fringe width is inversely proportional to small d. This is the reason we place the two sources very close to each other. Okay. To understand Stokes' law of reflection, let's have a look on this. You can see that I have a picture in which I have used the three mediums: air, oil and water. The refractive index for air is 1, for oil is 1.4 and for water is 1.33. Now you can see when the incident ray get reflected from the upper layer, that is from the surface of oil. So in that case you can see that there is a phase change of pi, because it gets reflected from the surface of a denser medium. And when the ray gets reflected from the lower layer, then it is getting reflection from the surface of a rarer medium. You can compare the refractive index of oil and water. So water will be a rarer medium as compared to oil. So when the wave is getting reflected from the surface of a rarer medium, it won't get any phase change. So we come to conclude that the phase change will occur whenever the light gets reflection from the surface of a denser medium. And that is the definition of Stokes' law also. Now have a look on this picture. This will show, or this will explain, that how the phase changes on reflection from the surface of a denser medium. Now in order to explain this, I will first use the principle of optical reversibility. According to this principle, in the absence of any absorption, a light ray that is reflected or refracted, that will retrace its original path if its direction is reversed. So I will use this principle while explaining this Stokes' law. Now you can see in the figure, the very first figure, I have used here two mediums. Medium number 1 is having the refractive index N1 and medium 2 is having the refractive index of N2. If N2 is greater than N1, then the medium N2 will be denser and medium N1 will be the rarer medium. Now I have incident the light having the amplitude E on the surface of a denser medium N2. Now this incident ray will get reflected and it will also get refracted. Let us consider R and T is representing the reflection coefficient and T is representing the transmitting coefficient. So the reflected ray will have the amplitude RE, as you can see the figure, and the refracted ray will have the amplitude TE. This is the first figure. Now come to the second figure. This is backwards in time. That is when the reflected and refracted ray, they get reversed. If I reverse the reflected ray, which is having the amplitude RE, as you can see, when this reflected ray will fall on the surface of denser medium, it will again produce the two waves. First one will be reflected and second one will be refracted. Now let us consider R dash and T dash. They represents the reflection and transmitting coefficient when the light goes from medium 2 to medium 1. Right? We have taken R and T as reflection and transmitting coefficient when the light goes from medium 1 to medium 2, and we have taken R dash and T dash as reflection and transmitting coefficients when the light goes from medium 2 to medium 1. So you keep this thing in your mind. Now look at the second picture. In this I have used RE as the incident ray. So after reflection it will go towards or in the direction of E, and after refraction it will go to the medium number 2. Right? Similarly TE. If I consider this as incident wave, it will also get reflected in the medium 2 and it will be refracted in the medium 1. Now look at the figure number 3. In this figure you can see that when RE gets reflected, right, originally its amplitude was RE, and when it gets reflected it will become R square E. R is also multiplied because R is the coefficient of reflection when the light goes from the medium 1 to medium 2. So it is the reflection coefficient. That is why I have used here R. So it will become R square E. And the other part of RE which will get refracted in the medium 2, that will be, what will be that? That will be RE multiplied by T, because T is the transmitting coefficient when the light goes from medium 1 to medium 2, right? So RE will produce two waves, one reflected having the amplitude R square E, and other refracted having the amplitude TRE, you can see in the figure. Also in the similar way, if I consider TE as the incident wave, then it will also produce the two waves. First one reflected. The reflected will be, you can see, it will be in the medium 2 itself, and its amplitude will be TE and multiplied with R dash, because it is reflected part but it is in the medium 2. That is why I have multiplied it with the R dash. And the next part of it will be refracted in the medium 1, and its amplitude will be TE and multiply by T dash. Why I use T dash? Because this is going from medium 2 to medium 1 and T dash is its transmitting coefficient, right? So in this case you can see that I have taken the amplitudes of all the reflected and refracted waves. Now I will combine all these. Now if you compare figure number 1 and figure number 3, right? So according to the principle of optical reversibility, your incident wave which is having the amplitude E, that should be equal to, in the figure 3 you can see, that should be equal to T dash TE plus R square E. Just the direction is reversed. The amplitude should remain same. Okay. So I can write down the first equation. You can see I have written in the side T dash TE plus R square E should be equal to E. Right? Now the second equation. You can compare the figure number 1 and figure number 3. You can see in the figure number 1 we don't have any, we have only three rays, E, RE and TE. Nothing is get transmitted in the medium 2. So here R dash TE plus TRE, it should be equal to 0, right? That is due to, again, due to the principle of optical reversibility. Now by using these two equations we can find out the Stokes relations as written here. The first relation is T dash T plus R square is equal to E, and the second relation and very important relation is R is equals to R dash. Now what is the meaning of this second relation? This second relation will tell you that if we, what is R? R is the reflection coefficient when light goes from medium 1 to medium 2, and R dash is the reflection coefficient when light goes from medium 2 to medium 1. You get their amplitude is same but with the negative sign, means direction is reversed. So if we compare the wave reflected from medium 1 with the wave reflected from medium 2, we can say that the reflected amplitude is taken as positive, and in other the reflected amplitude is taken as negative. Or we can say one of them must be undergoing the phase change of pi, or a phase change of 180 degree. So this is a very very important relationships. By performing the experiments like Lloyd's mirror experiment, it has been found that the ray which is reflected from the optically denser medium suffers a phase change of pi, and no phase change of phase occurs when the reflection takes place from a rarer medium. So we can say that the ray which is reflected from a denser medium, that will suffer a phase change of pi, and the ray which is reflected from the surface of a rarer medium, that won't get any phase change, right? So this was all about the Stokes law. I hope you understood the topic, you understood the idea. This is a very very important relation and very very important topic. So what are the conclusion that we draw? That a phase change of 180 degree occurs when the reflection takes place from a denser medium. No phase change on reflection from a rarer medium. The Lloyd mirror experiment gives the experimental proof of Stokes law, and this results used in many interference experiments. So I hope you like this presentation, and it will definitely help you to understand the idea behind Stokes law. Thank you.